but the chapel.
Their whole conference, though.
Okay, but that's part of something to look at. You know, there's a huge difference beginning of the week versus end of the week. We come in really wanting Thursday because at dinner for us is down at the water and our chapel is on the water. So it makes sense for us to try to do Thursday. So in our plan ahead, we plan that. So if there are particular aspects of what it's like or what your questions are going to come from, let us know that too.
Well, I'm just coming off of deeming a creative writing conference where we were the oldest, and we always had Friday, and it was a big culmination of the conference, to doing a themed piece for 5th and 6th graders that's it's the Lorax, so we speak of trees. And so I suspect that we may end up with the Monday or the Tuesday slide. I'm not as, I have worked with junior high kids, but I'm more familiar with the high school kids the creative writing conference was. So any pointers I can get on how to make that transition would be fantastic.
We usually, this is my first time deaning, but my co-dean has done it before, and he usually tries to sign up for the Monday worship just to get it over with almost. And I just wanted to know ways to have the kids input on it, because like with Monday worship, we like to walk in with a lot of it already prepared and just assign parts, but we still want the kids to like be a part of the creating of it. So I'm wondering for like pointers and tips on how to make them creative with a worship they have to build in a day.
Ownership is key. However, convincing them of ownership is as important as actually letting them have ownership. And there are ways to do that, where they feel like they've really made the decision, but you've given them A and B, and they get to pick A or B.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I wanted to sort of just jump right in there because it just came, when you said that, even for a Thursday worship, I come like totally prepared, but with choices.
Right.
And I know that I divide the kids up into those who want to do creative writing, those who want to sing, those who want to have a speaking part in a skit, those who want to do stagecraft.
Nothing to do with the speaking part.
That's right, and those who want to do stagecraft and prepare stuff for it. And the creative writers I have write, and this is easily done in one day, write the call to worship and the prayer, so that they've done it. But the sort of structure of the service is already there. And last year when we walked on water, we
literally.
Well, not literally. We were actually walking on a table under the water, but
You can see the table.
So
you see the table?
No. Actually, it was really cool. Actually, you couldn't see the table because it had sunk to be like this deep in the water, and said it was too murky. So what Jesus was walking up to his knees in water.
Jesus was a big dude.
Jesus was waiting.
But so then, what we came with, what I came with was a whole bunch of different songs to choose from, kind of, and actually the kids. Some of the kids knew the song, We Come From the Water, which I didn't know. I'd heard it before, but I didn't know. So we then, got somebody to teach it to me so I could play it.
It is key to come with a plan.
Yeah.
Don't think you can walk in, and this, I've only deaned one conference, but I've been teaching for 24 years, and I've been involved with camp for 33. Coming with a plan is essential. Coming rigid with a plan is deadly. Because you won't get the buy-in you want. And then it really does become hard for the kids to have ownership. So with a plan, yes. Come in rigid, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah. And one of my favorite resources is the Humongous Book of Bible Skits. Yeah, the Humongous Book of Bible Skits. It's not a humongous book. I was disappointed. I was actually disappointed when I got it and it was really this thin.
Bigger on the inside.
But what I like about this book of Humongous Book of Bible Skits is that each one of them has sort of a flexible number of characters, and you can use the entire conference as the crowd or whatever. But it only has like 3 speaking parts, and so that in terms of microphones and that kind of stuff, then you can have the speakers be in one place and the action being someplace else.
And they're easily adjustable.
Yeah.
You can take it and take the heart of it and use it and twist it and make it fit your conference's needs, which is nice. One other thing, and Cheryl alluded to it originally, you're going to have kids who desire different roles. You're going to have the showman who wants to be front and center. You're going to have the kid who wants nothing to do with front and center. You're going to have the musician who wants to play. You may end up with songwriters who really want to create an individual song for your service. Play to your strengths, but don't neglect that kid who you see. Trust your gut. You're going to have a kid who you think this could be their breakout moment. They get to be Peter, and that's going to really start something for them. Don't force the kid in front of the camera who doesn't want to be there. That can be devastating. Don't force the kid to sing who isn't ready to do it yet. But you will find that kids will come out of the woodwork who you didn't expect, and let those kids come out of the woodwork. That's hugely important.
There you go.
Thoughts? What's in your guys' heads? What age groups do we have here? I know we have
7 to 9.
7 to 9, 5 and 6.
7 to 9. 5th and 6th.
8 to 9.
4th.
Little ones. Okay.
9th through 12th.
Oh, wow.
4th and 5th.
Okay, so we've got a good wide range. We've got everybody.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Okay.
I started out in 4th and 5th, and so I thought, well, I'll have this all sort of put together for them ahead of time. But when I do the older kids, I need to give them more whatever. But I found that it sort of worked to sort of come with everything with the older kids, because they're here to have fun and to go sailing and to and not to spend all their time creating a worship service. And so and this way they actually, and it also gave my 2 guitarists time to learn the songs, and the stagecraft people time to figure out how to walk on water, and that kind of stuff. So coming with basically everything. I mean, I already have my skit for next year because we have to do another water skit. I mean, this year, this coming. Yes.
It's fun. One of the things Cheryl and I noticed last year, that was our first year dealing together, was when it came to this portion of the week, we completely switched roles. When we came into the week, I was the can I say anal retentive on camera?
You just did.
Okay. I was the anal retentive. I really want a structure. I want to move from here to here at this time. I want to move from here at this time, and we have this much. Blah, 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 blah. And Cheryl comes in more about, woo, here we go. Is that fair?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't quite woo, but it was sort of like, it'll be cool. It's going to be cool. Everything's fun.
And Wednesday, Cheryl turned to panic. But we're not ready yet. And I turned to...
And our worship service is coming up.
Right. And I turned to, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The kids are going to pull it off.
Well, because I am a pastor and I look upon worship as performance, really. I mean,
It's a show.
It's a show. And I try to put my services together in such a way that they flow really smoothly and they don't lose people's attention and all that stuff. That was a real it's like a high priority for me. I don't want to just get it out of the way. It's a real high priority for me to have the kids not only take seriously the leading of worship and take ownership of it, but also then, once we've done it, feel really good about it. I mean, because, you know, so the kids feel successful.
Can you guys talk about, one of the things that I always love about your worships is that it feels like it's more than just a show. I mean, it is well put together, but how do we get it to be a deeper level of, you know, this is something spiritual and kind of setting that tone? I don't know, not just you, but for everybody. How can we do that?
Now, do you mean, well, do you mean the message, or do you mean the
pride and respect and
the spiritual message, yeah. So and the spiritual sort of, I guess what I'm looking for is how can we be better at, you know, taking worship and it transporting us to sort of another place. It's not like just watching skits. It's not just like watching a movie. That there's a deeper piece to it, and how do we kind of, because I think one of our challenges is you have to say that to the young people in some way. They have to get it. You know, oh, this is what you mean by the Spirit is with us.
And how to ground it in something that they then take with them at the end of the week that it contributes to that objective that we collectively have.
one of the things that I always start with a scripture passage. And early, one of the first things we do in the week is to talk about it and what message is there, you know, and so that the kids actually end up writing the sermon. And once and right at the beginning of the week, we know what story we're going to do and what the point of it is, so that then when the kids write the call to worship and the prayer, it's based on that. They know where they're going, and so that the theme runs through the whole thing. And the songs all, you know, go with that same theme, so that there is a little brief moment of just sort of like, what's the point of this? That kind of little sermon thing that the kids do. But the entire thing has one message. And I sort of do that with my church services too. I try to have my church services have one message, so that whichever part of it you remember has that same message.
That's from a parishioner's standpoint, that's very true. From the time we start talking early Sunday morning, as everybody's filing in and sitting, to the time where we go over for the really, really good coffee hour, it's all connected, and that's really nice. Here, it also, we take it seriously. And the more seriously we take it, without being,
That's true.
The more seriously we take it, the more seriously the kids take it. My experience is 6th grade through essentially college freshman. So I don't get the whole 5th grade, 4th grade too well. That's not my strength. But the more seriously I present the Treaty of Paris, the more they get out of it and the deeper they're willing to look into it. So when they come to present it, they're not just up there slapstick, they're presenting it as scholars. So the more seriously we take the development of the worship, you're laughing at the idea of my 8th graders being scholars.
Well, no, I was actually just thinking about the kids taking seriously the storm and the getting sprayed with water. And
they loved it.
It was water.
Oh, wow. But then they become theologians. So they're presenting a message, not just a skit.
Exactly.
So what I hear you saying is it's a level of authenticity.
Yeah.
Both in the way you're presenting the information and the kids pick up on that and they become very authentic with the material as well.
And
And that carries through then
Yeah.
to the feeling it gives off. And it's the feeling that makes it spiritual, right? If we do the exact same thing and we're walking through the skit and we say all the same things, but everybody's like blah blah blah. It's
Right.
not the same. It's exactly the same thing with emotion
And-
thought and understanding behind it.
And the people who are not on stage at that moment
Yes.
have to be
Are
totally
just
tuned
as.
in.
That's right.
Right, they're holding
And
space for
because one of
whatever.
the things, one of the first years I was here, I watched a 5th and 6th grade conference lead worship, and it happened to be in the social hall, and the kids who were not currently sort of center stage were sitting over on the sides, and they were playing, they were fooling around and looking really bored, and so that was like something that was like, okay, when you lead worship, you have to model that respect, that focus that you want your the congregation to have.
Our storm kids were just as important as Jesus and Peter and the apostles in the book. And they knew that. And that was important. If they thought they were just kids throwing water, that's all they would have been. But they knew they were an important element to the presentation. The kid who does the final editing on the PowerPoint is just as important as the people who wrote it. It's the same notion.
I wanted to go back to what Tim was asking about, how do you make sure that it's not just a performance? And I don't know if it works as well with the little ones, but with the older kids, you could definitely have a conversation around kind of a shift in thinking from, it's tempting to think, well, we're performing for the congregation. If you realize that your intended audience is God,
Right. Yeah.
that turns it into
That's
something
right.
different.
And you're actually leading the congregation in worshiping God. You're not
Absolutely.
performing for the
Yeah.
congregation.
Yeah, and you can take it that step further and say, actually, you're the directors in the congregation, is the one doing the play, and God's the audience. But, sometimes that's a step too far. Sometimes if you could just get them to God, that's good enough.
So even for you as the deans too, you need to remember that yes, you don't want it to be a complete disaster, but it's going to be what it is, and
Yes.
it's going to be wonderful whether it's it goes off perfectly without a hitch, or
Yes,
it's a
that's
complete
right.
disaster. You're
Yeah.
gonna it's not it's for God.
Yeah.
God is not
And
going to care.
I have a couple of student ministers in my congregation right now, and occasionally the worship assistant doesn't show up on a Sunday morning, or something is, or the deacon who's supposed to do the announcement doesn't arrive till after church starts, and so at our church too, there's a habit, I don't know, maybe it's getting to be common in all churches. Nobody arrives until it's time for worship to start, and 5 minutes after, it's like, whoa, so you're about to walk up front and like nobody's there, and then they're all there. But so in one case, I can't remember what exactly the problem was, but one of my students who was leading worship with me, I can't remember how we were doing this. She said, well, what do we do if, and what if that, and I said, we'll just see who shows up and we'll make worship with that. And that's, and so that's what.
That was not you that Wednesday, though.
Well, no, but by the time we're actually there.
When it's time to put on the show.
When it's time to put on the show, we'll see who shows up and we'll make worship with that. But I prepare.
Yeah, well, that allows you to do that.
Yeah.
I have a big question. What's some advice you have for working with youth who are not used to going into this kind of just spiritual language or spiritual understanding, and are scared to actually go there and don't have the experience of going there, like in helping to prepare worship? Maybe they're just, their churches, or maybe they don't have church experience, or their church is kind of like not pushed them to really get into this.
Yeah. First thing that comes into my mind is role choice.
Yeah.
That kid probably isn't going to be Peter or Jesus, or Mary or whomever. I think for a lot of those kids, and part was the thing we were talking about for the group that's now meeting Tuesdays in the room with the lab. A lot of those kids are scared of church. They get the dogma, the oppression almost of church. Finding a role for them that allows them to experience the Spirit, experience church without it being oppressive.
And I think I just treat them all as though, I mean, I sort of, we'll see who shows up when we make worship of it. It's like, we'll do this and they'll get out of it what they get out of it. And it's always very, I mean, because we, in both in Weave Us Together and in Bon Voyage, I start the day with a prayer of the four directions. And we're standing to do that in the commons room and stuff. Some of the kids, that was like really powerful for them. And some of them, I think, went through the whole week thinking it was stupid. And that's, you know, it's like, there you go.
And you're going to get every kid to a different level. And it may not be Riley's turn to get to that different level.
Yeah.
And I have to be okay with that as a dean and his father for that.
Well, even adult members of my church, there are some people who come on Wednesday night to our Labyrinth Walk series, you know, and who really do a lot of inner work, and others who just, you know, just come to church and say, I don't know if I believe in God, you know, it's...
I had an idea while you were talking too. I mean, if you really think it's a kid who's resisting but interested and just uncomfortable, what just came to me, and I don't know how you do this, but it's almost like I want to ask him the question, what inspires you? What are you passionate about? And help them understand that that's God. You know, and how can we bring that to the worship service? Rather than saying, this is the worship service, and here's you, and the bridge is wide, and the chasm is deep. You know, where's the passion within you, and how, or what does this passage mean? I mean, something that reaches them.
Yeah.
How you do that in a group of 40, 50 kids, I don't know. That's the part I don't know. I think of those things as one-on-ones, but I don't know.
Another thing I was thinking of too is that having a discussion, you know, with the whole group and saying, why are we doing worship? What's important to you in a worship, and what could be important to you in a worship, you know? And if there are people who haven't had any worship experience, they'll hear from the other kids that, you know, well, it's really important. The music is what really touches me, or, you know, the silent prayer, or whatever it is, you know, or something needs to be riveting, or something needs, whatever. And you'll get different opinions, and they'll all be right. So,
right. Not ruling that account out either. The kid who's not ready to do it, that doesn't mean they can't contribute in some other way. I'm the rookie in a lot of ways to a lot of the spiritual side of it. But I can bring a different kind of thought process to it that helps. So.
I also just was thinking about some of the kids that I thought were not getting it. They end up being, I mean, just thinking about Riley, and was his first time here or whatever, when he's a kid who you would think was not getting the spiritual stuff. And when his parents came to pick him up, before he would let them leave, he said, can I take you to my favorite place? And it was Hubble Chapel.
Yep.
I think opening the, well, I mean, you all have your themes, and there's your themes have something to do spiritually. And so the better way you can incorporate your theme into your worship, like sticking the table under the water. I mean, did you explain what we were walking on water worship last year? I mean, there's no one that went away from that without something. You know, watching Jesus get out of the boat and walk on the water, and, you know, I mean, wherever you were on your journey, you got something from from watching that. And the kids will get something if they, are allowed to do it in their own, where they are, with their own words, with their own comfort level, and so the more, I always felt like the more that they have a part in the planning of what you're worshiping, the better it comes out. And so some of the skits will be better than others, and some of the poems will be better than others, but if they're really, allowed to say, well, this is what worship is for me, like they said, that really helps.
You can encourage growth, you can't force it.
Yeah.
And that's an important element.
Yeah, you just never know what's going on inside. You just never know what's really going on when they look like they're being resistant.
I have a question. Supposing I don't play any musical instruments and I'm a dean, how do I have music in worship?
Ask her to play.
Well, actually, there's staff who play, and in fact, and resource people who play. And I brought this along because I couldn't find the book. I was bringing some music books to share with the new Leave Us Together deans. Oh no, that's not it. But I had the first or second year of Weave Us Together, I came upon this great chant that was sort of, it was in the curriculum or something that year, and Uyai Mose. And I said, oh man, I want to use that as like a call to worship, have the kids sing it and lead it. It was new to me too, so I brought the recording of it. And we would listen to it and sing along with it, because it didn't have instrumental accompaniment at all. It was just, except for drums. And the coolest thing was, because it was new to me, I wasn't feeling really, and this was 4th and 5th graders, I wasn't feeling really comfortable, making it any more complex. But the recording has a high part, a descant that comes in. And 2 of the girls said, can we do the high part? And I said, and then one of my counselors said, well, I'll do it with them. And I said, well, if you can learn it, you can do it. And they did, and it was absolutely phenomenal and wondrous. But I think that one of the things is, if you're going to ask, well, let me think. I have a couple things about music, because music is really important to me. One is, don't arrive not knowing what music you want. The staff can help with accompanying music and teaching music and stuff, but don't come going, I don't know what we're going to do, because then you're weeks away from a finished worship service. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, this is my own little bugaboo, which is that Silver Lake has song sheets, multiple song sheets of the same songs, but oftentimes they're different versions of the same song. The words are different, and so if I want a song sheet, I bring it. For Bon Voyage, we didn't have a song sheet because I chose all music that just repeated, so that they can instantly learn it, and it would also be easier for my guitarist to learn it and all that stuff. But so if you want to do a song that has more than one verse or something, or isn't something that just keeps repeating, I recommend bringing your own song sheets. Xerox them at the church, and
as long as you're on teaching the music for worship, one of the things I've seen done well is you take the grace and singing for the day before your worship service, and you use that opportunity to teach the songs that you will be using in worship.
Oh,
So
yes,
they
that's
all
right,
heard
that's
them
right.
before.
You guys did that. That was great.
And I stole it from someplace else, I
Yeah.
forget who I saw do it first, but
Yeah.
it worked really well.
Don't be afraid, and you and I talked about it a little bit last summer, don't be afraid to go contemporary either. I am a country music junkie. Sorry about that for everybody who's going to be punished by it this summer. But Randy Travis, George Strait, Josh Turner, all really good, faith-based in their heads anyway, if not directly in their music, singers who have great message songs that are very spiritual, very God-related.
Owl City.
Yeah.
know that one.
If you want
They're-
non-country ones, talk to me. I've got a great squad of my playlist that I've been curating for over a year.
Yeah.
I'll leave a link to it.
Allison.
Owl City
Yeah, Owl
is,
City's good.
you know, I think everything, if not faith-based, is positive.
Yeah, right.
You know.
That's nice.
But the one thing that I have learned with if you're having your conference sing for everyone else, is not to have
Yeah, music.
music there. You can have song sheets that your counselors sit on the ground and hold up so the kids can see them. But that's the only way that their eyes and their mouths are going to be pointing this way. No matter how well they know the song, if they have a sheet, it's going to be down here. And so we don't use song sheets for the conferees when they're singing. Even if it's like a hymn that everyone's singing, they still have it on a big piece of newsprint, because and anyone who was here last night, I was trying to sing off the sheet and you couldn't hear me teaching the song until Kimberly came and held the song up so that I was projecting. So I would suggest that to everyone for all your songs that you're singing with your campers.
And I always have, I have a few lead singers. I mean, as we're practicing, you know, and as people are learning it, actually I'll ask too at the beginning of the week, you know, who wants to be a lead singer, you know, who wants to be, you know, leading the singing, so that those people are close to the mic.
And last year, we were very fortunate. We had a couple of excellent lead folk who we brought with us.
We've got, yes, from our
Sometimes
church.
the ones that want to be close to the mic are not the ones who should be
You
close
want
to the
them.
mic.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So
We
I
might
tend
want to
to.
wait until after they've sung.
I
You want to listen to them before you put them
I
on
tend
mic.
to sort of listen as we're learning it, you know, and ask, although I have to say, I was amazed with like the 4th and 5th graders in Leave Us Together, when we were singing, I had 4 boys and like 16 girls. And the 4 boys, when we'd be sitting in the commons room singing, and the 4 boys were on one couch together, and then there were like 4 some of our girls were on this other couch, and basically all of the kids sounded good, and the boys were just kicking butt. I mean, they were just amazing. So I've actually encountered many people who wanted to be singers who were not.
I know we're getting a little close to time. I don't know how close, but one thing I wanted to get in before we did, something I thought about when you were looking for this and looking for the other CD, you said something that triggered my head. It's important to let them see you learn. As a dean, as an educator, because we're all educators in this case, them seeing you learn is an amazingly valuable tool. It lets them see you struggle a little bit, and struggle isn't a bad thing. It lets them see you work through a problem and get to the other side of it. And that's very, very important, whether it's with a song, whether it's figuring out the call to worship, whether it's figuring out how to block something out in the water. Them seeing you work through something and learn is very, very valuable.
It makes it okay for them to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And to have the counselors be right up in front and not standing behind the kids mumbling the words, you know, of whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, if they're up there, well, making fools of themselves and they're okay with it, the kids will be okay with
That's
it,
right.
you know.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes a big difference.
Well, and also like when we're gathered around singing, the counselors need to be totally engaged
Right.
and not visiting over by the side.
Right, oh no, yeah, counselors need to be engaged at all points.
How many first-time deans? So, returning deans. Best worship story. Really quick, 30-second best worship story. Should we start with the nightmare worship story?
Well, while I think I have a really basic question.
Sure.
Having never led a worship.
Sure.
And having just attended and not paying attention to the structure at all. What's the structure? Like, what are the parts that we need to
What
put
do
together?
you want?
It varies.
You can
Okay.
ask
How
kids,
does it fit?
what age group?
4 and
Fourth
5.
and fifth.
Fourth and fifth. Well, you can even ask them. You can say, okay, when you go to church, what happens? You know, call to worship.
I recommend getting the structure ahead of
But
time.
I'm just
And so
saying,
what is that?
letting the
Like-
kids do that, you know, as
That's the
well,
way of
though,
building
you know.
ownership.
And so that's the way that they can say, these are what's important, because that's what you said,
You-
parts of worship. So just look at your bulletin.
So,
You have the list in your head, and then you say, what are they? And then you go, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
plus.
what else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Until they get your list.
So,
Yeah, there
you know,
you go.
look at your bulletin, but, you know, an opening, a closing, and a message, and some
Yeah.
singing.
Okay.
Because I would discourage us from being, kind of pick up my Sunday bulletin and
Right,
that's what it's
no.
supposed
Oh,
to be.
yeah, no, you don't have to.
No,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't-
You're just
it
saying
doesn't
our
have to
top
follow
list,
a
right?
script.
Yeah.
No.
Something has to sort of invite people into worship,
Yeah.
and sort of set up the whatever it is, and then the message, and then, and then some more singing and benediction, A prayer is always in there somewhere.
You need to weigh in, you need to weigh out.
Yeah,
And a way to
You
hook
need to
your,
have the
hook
message
your
in there
audience.
somehow.
Yeah.
But it's on the topic of strange and unusual worship services. Somewhere along the line, Jane and I had what we thought was a brilliant idea. We had decided that the written word we would do worship in the style of a coffee house. And so, and I'm still convinced that it could work.
It could work.
The first year that we did it, we had all it was wonderful. There was this great energy. The kids really bought into it, and they kept saying, "Oh, can I do one more? Can I do one more?" And it was always something little. Oh my goodness gracious! Marathon worship service.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
I remember, it was good.
I mean, and there was a lot of good stuff in there, but
Right.
oh my goodness, it went on.
And I was there with a bunch of fourth and fifth graders going, oh God.
I'm so sorry.
That's
I'm so sorry. So if you go ahead and play with it, and and see what you can come up with. But for the love of goodness, time it.
And
Yeah.
practicing the transitions.
Well, and
practicing
always,
transitions too.
And then, yes,
Understanding that.
and if you're working with older kids, remember that fourth and fifth graders are gonna be at your worship service.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you've
that was
got a
another thing
broad
that we
range.
came out.
Yeah.
Your target audience is 9 to 16, 17.
Yeah, right.
Right.
285.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
right, right.
That's right.
Right, you bore the adults, they're not watching the kid, yeah.
Yeah, the second year we found more ways to be a little more interactive. We did a kind of storytelling where the congregation had responses. They were just waiting on bated breath to blurt out. And so that worked better. But, yeah, so trying to hold the attention of the little ones and know how long it's going to be.
We were saying, keep an eye on, especially at the high schools, keep an eye on the message and make sure that it's not gonna go over the little one's head. Or, especially it's the one thing to watch out for too, make sure if you're letting the kids do the things, make sure you know everything that they're doing. Because the last thing
Yes.
you want them doing
Yeah.
is going into a gray area that
Yeah.
this isn't appropriate for a fourth grader to be talking about. And, this is an appropriate discussion to be having with all of the camp, or Camp Live right at this exact moment.
I used to give tours in a historic site, and and actually, when I was first doing it, an older member of the staff said to me, if you aim your vocabulary and in your tour at about a third grade age level, you'll get everybody. And it was true.
Sad but true.
Sad
Yeah.
I was one of those people that raised their hands when I said that I worked underneath Tim as he was a counselor actually of mine. I was with the conference that is now known as the God Show. And some of the things that I remember the most were the kind of discussions that you were talking about. Like, is it okay for us to say this? Is it okay? Oh, we did the story of Esther, and there's a eunuch character, and the person that was playing the eunuch was playing a gentleman playing very, very feminine. And we had a big conversation around is this okay?
Right.
What does this mean to me? But it's one of the things I remember most about worship. I think we did run into like a very common with that. It was kind of an interesting conversation for us to have, and we got a lot of growth out of it.
It doesn't mean don't take risks. I'm one of those where's the line tiptoe people, because I think a lot of the best teaching goes on then. You don't want to cross it. You don't want to offend or put anybody off. Or like you were saying before, if you've got that kid who's not yet engaged, you don't want to push them further away. But there's nothing wrong with pushing away. Like you don't want to offend, you don't want to put off, you don't want to cross any lines. But take some chances, have some fun with it, because that's often when the most growth happens.
Would kind of say too, if you think especially if you think you're going to start taking risk or something, give your fellow deans just a heads up.
Oh yeah, if you know you're getting close
you know
to the
that
line,
you're going to cross,
right.
just so that they can, especially if you have the fourth grade conference, you can be ready. Okay, they're going to go here.
They're all going to cross-dress.
How do you have to be ready to have that conversation?
They're totally cool with
I'm
cross-dressing.
saying.
Fourth and fifth graders are. They're just totally cool with that.
if you know you're getting near the line.
Can I just say something about cross-dressing? So my work outside of here is GLBT cultural competence, and if you're going to do cross-dressing, if you could try to not have it be the butt of the joke, that would be really wonderful, because we've been making some attempts here, somewhere like to make this a welcoming place for transgender people, and transgender people are often the butt of the joke. So you can do cross-dressing if you have a great conversation about it. So thanks.
Yeah, because anytime somebody's the butt of the joke, it's probably not appropriate.
Yeah,
That's right. I think probably no jokes with butts.
Yeah.
There was some buts.
No butts.
In all ways that you could interpret that. Just stay away
We
from it.
found a great worship experience. I think it was either the first or second year of God's Son, and we used the Bible verse where, and I'm sorry, I can't even remember what it's in, but God says to the prophet, "Eat my words." And the girl who was, doing the skit that they had done, she was pretending while we were practicing to eat the scroll. And during worship, she actually took the scroll and she chewed it up and swallowed it, and we were, but it was awesome, but we had no clue she was going to do it, because she was just pretending. And she decided that in that moment in time that she was actually going to eat it. And I thought it was very powerful, but we didn't know she was going to do it. But that was awesome. That was a good worship moment.
That's when you lean and say that was non-toxic ink.
Yeah,
Right?
we planned that.
Acid-free paper,
Yeah. So.
We had a similar situation in one of our Sing Praise God Show kind of conferences. I don't remember which one it was, but there was a lot of talk about gender issues and who you're attracted to and all that stuff during the week with the kids. And we had chosen a female to play a male role, and there was a scene where they were supposed to kiss. And they decided, so there was two girls that were playing, one was a girl and one was a boy, and they were both, I think, identifying as gay. And, that was part of our week and our discussion, and obviously the Silver Lake knows you don't get sexually involved. So we'd had conversation, but obviously that was not supposed to be happening. Anyway, they decided that during this show, they would actually really, really kiss, like in a passionate way. And none of us knew that was going to happen. And
That's a lot further up the line than eating
That's
paper.
that's way.
and the funny thing was, they were so, when we sort of said, okay, that was great, everyone went, ooh, and then some people went, ew, because it was two girls. And I said, you know, my concern was not that it was two girls kissing, was the passion of the kiss. It was inappropriate for the time. So it was an opportunity for us to have some discussion. Probably the 4th grade conferences had some discussion too. It was one of those things like, you know, maybe we should have talked about, like, okay, when you kiss, it's meant to be like a short, you know, the kiss that your grandmother might give you or something, not like you're passionate. But so, yeah, I think I like your point. Know what they're going to do so that you're not surprised.